First off, I want to say, I want hair like yours. So where is the cannabis product that is sprouting hair growth? So how did Mississippi get that to be the one that provides cannabis for government research?
I don't think anybody is aware, back in the 60s,
How the hell that
they
happened?
had the most effective lobbyist, I guess, that said we should get it. But it is strange to grow outdoors with all the humidity in Mississippi. It's like a formula for mold,
I mean, yeah,
and
no.
and now the university does have an indoor grow finally,
yeah.
so they should have better controls on mold counts and stuff. But I just had another colleague of mine who received moldy weed from UMass, so it's not going away. It's not like they're eradicating it.
Well, why are they doing it so wrong?
Well, this is the crazy thing is I understand that they actually, their flour is pretty comparable to, but then what they do afterwards to make it GMP, that's where they ruin it. If we could just get the flowering tops from them that's not adulterated, but when they smash all these strains together to standardize it, I think that's where a lot of the problems arise. So we really just want to use natural flour that hasn't been destroyed, and the dry bud material is available. Like
You mentioned that in the distribution, they would see all these seeds and stems and they would just grind it all together.
when the scientists complained about the quality and the fact that there was all this extraneous plant material, the government reacted by just grinding it into powder so you couldn't tell anymore because they were sick and tired of hearing.
Do you believe that there was no one on that staff part of that decision just to be like, hey, don't do that? There's no way.
I think they're just the cannabis research in general is very threatening to the government because the government obviously is receiving tremendous money from all these ultra wealthy, powerful organizations, whether it's big pharma, private prisons, law enforcement. They all have a vested interest in seeing research suppressed because they don't want any data that might
take eyeballs off their products.
That's it,
or addictions off of their
because
products.
they're already seeing patients coveting plant-based medicines and walking away from traditional pharmaceuticals, and that's really harming their revenue stream. So what's happening is they don't want any data that might soften the public attitude about cannabis as a medicine. So that's why studies like ours that are like the gold standard randomized controlled trials are very threatening to them because those are the kind of trials that actually influence the thinking of the medical community, and that would be very problematic if studies like ours actually showed medical benefits. So that's why their only solution is to suppress this work or to thwart it in any way they can. And they found a lot of good strategies, like they give us the low quality cannabis, they create all these extra layers of government red tape so that it takes forever to get these studies implemented. That discourages scientists from even wanting to enter this arena.
Right.
So that's why I'm so happy that we've got lots of young scientists now that are coming through our lab. We've got all kinds of medical students and interns who want to participate because they don't know where else to go. There aren't very many places where you can do cannabis clinical trials on humans.
Right.
So they want to be in our lab and see firsthand how do these studies get done, and they're realizing how much fun this is to work with a plant.
Working in weed is fun.
I mean, even with the low quality plant material from the government, people were getting better. We were seeing people responding, even as hard as the government has worked to dilute this study drug and make it impotent. The fact is that people were improving. So
it's the power of the plant.
That's there. Even that managed to penetrate somehow. So imagine what could happen if we could redo the study protocol with real world flower. It could be a whole new set of data that might emerge. So we're eager to do that. We'll probably be forced to partner with Canadian companies because we don't have any federally legal supply in the U.S. But that's so sad to me because we have all these talented farmers all around the U.S. who could easily grow cannabis study drug for research.
They'd have so much pride doing
That's
that.
it. Yeah, they could grow the best flower we've ever seen, and that could be a real game changer for research. But instead, we're forced to import this, which is just absurd. So,
Where do you see in 5 years your research going?
I think we believe that flower is the real medicine, and the dry bud material is where the heart of the medicine, and like extracts are an important option for patients, but we think that it's suboptimal because you strip out a lot of the molecules in the natural plant. So we're hoping that we can persuade the government, because right now you see flower being suppressed in a lot of legal states. Flower is kind of vilified, and elected officials are afraid of flower, and they're more comfortable with pills and capsules.
Oh, sure,
and
of course,
tinctures.
yeah.
So our work is going to be focused squarely on getting flower through the entire FDA drug development process and helping to get it eventually on the market, where insurance companies would finally be forced to pay for flower because it would have an FDA indication to treat PTSD or to treat pain, and we think that smoked and vaporized flower will be far less expensive. So it'll be the idea that flower could be more affordable for patients and possibly have insurance coverage would be a really important new dimension for healthcare, could reduce healthcare costs nationally. And so we're really eager to stay on this path because we feel like we have a lot of support from the FDA. I know people are surprised to hear that FDA are allies, but FDA are physician investigators. They really want to see flower put through the FDA process. They're not law enforcement. So if people think FDA are the ones blocking this, it's not true. That's why we're pursuing this lawsuit, because the government, the DEA, gave the public the impression that they were going to end this monopoly and finally license other growers for research. So they actually made the step of taking applications. There are like 30 applications sitting on the desk of the DEA for almost 3 years now, collecting dust, but none of them have been processed. So what's happened is we're still stuck with the situation where we only have one federally legal drug supply for clinical trials in the U.S. It's still the University of Mississippi. They still enjoy this monopoly, even though the DEA promised the public that they would license other growers, but we haven't seen any movement there. So I think, we've tried every possible tactic. We've used grassroots activism. We've hired professional lobbyists to try to put pressure on DEA. Nothing has worked, and I think our only hope now is to seek out a remedy from the courts. The courts may be our only chance of finally getting justice here.
It's so good to see you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sure you get this a lot, and if you don't, well then let me say it. Thank you for everything you're doing and have done in cannabis and research and for the industry at large.
That means the world to me, believe me.
You have affected so much positive change that it's great to be sitting with you.
Oh, I'm so grateful that you even care about this issue.